Yo, what up? Toji here. We've talked about every single path in the game at this point. With characters on the way, now is a good time to mention exactly what double dipping is. In a previous video, I explained that double dipping is essentially characters having traits from other characters in other classes. So for instance, Bronya is the best example here. With there being 7 classes, the design philosophy behind the characters in this game are going to be exactly what they bring in terms of the path they're in. And we understand that there's always going to be exceptions to the rule. What if long term, the limited characters are the ones that end up being the double dipping characters, we should say? However, with limited characters coming up, it's no surprise that in order to sell the characters, Star Rail, or should I say Hoyoverse in this case, may see fit into having characters double dip to bring in more values or entice more players to roll for those characters. So in a recent video, we talked about Huluwacha and how he would essentially power creep the current roster of Abundance characters in most situations. He is mainly an Abundance character because of his healing and cleansing capabilities, but he does have the trait of a Nihility character being able to strip the buff from the enemy like Pela, and he does have AoE damage on his ultimate, so he does have the trait of an Erudition character like Himiko. We understand that the destruction path boils down to 2 things: take damage and do damage. We understand that the hunt characters essentially want to deal as much single target damage as they can to the enemies. We understand that the erudition characters excel at doing AoE damage to multiple mobs at once. We understand that the harmony characters want to essentially provide buffs in the sense of maybe damage buffs for the DPS characters, or just being able to support the team's capabilities overall. We understand that the Nihility characters want to provide debuffs in some way, shape, or form. With there being a vast number of debuffs in the game currently, there's always going to be many different options for Nihility. We understand that the goal of the Preservation is to make sure that the team takes less damage. The Preservation character has higher taunt values and is able to support the team in terms of shielding capabilities. And lastly, we understand that the Abundance characters wants to keep the team relatively healthy, maybe in the form of heals, maybe a revive or cleansing effects. With there being a pretty sizable roster of characters in the game, you're always going to have characters that are essentially outliers, or in this case, exceptions to the rule. Jinyu Wang being an erudition character, you're going to use him a lot of the time in AoE settings, but this character will do much more damage, not only in just AoE settings, but in single target fights as well. As per the reason why he's a very strong character at that. So he is a erudition / hunt mix. Seal, the strongest single target DPS character in the game. With her being a hunt character, most of your damage is going to be done in the form of single hits. And it's no joke. With her being able to get an additional turn whenever she kills the enemy, you can honestly say she is a hunt / erudition mix. And she also gets tons of speed increases, so she's constantly going to get the turn over and over again. So it's almost as if she's doing AoE damage, as funny as I'm saying that. Harmony character Bronya, who is always going to be good because she essentially cleanses a debuff from an ally before pushing up their action bar to the max and then giving them a damage increase. She's always going to be valuable because of the cleansing effect she has. So it's almost as if not only is she a buffer, but she's also a cleanser / abundance mix. Silver Wolf, who is an amazing debuffer, the best debuffer in the game currently, providing tons of value in the form of defense reduction, resistance reduction, attack reduction, speed reduction, even more defense reduction, even more resisted reduction, and then being able to be a strong single target DPS whenever you have her at E6. Not only does she become a very strong Nihility character to provide value for the team overall in the form of debuffs, but she also is a very strong single target damage dealer. That is if you max out the copies of this character, and then she becomes a hunt DPS essentially. A character like March 7th, being able to provide shields for the team is very valuable, and she provides very thick shields. But she also has a cleansing effect on her elemental skill, which you will probably find tons of value for your team comps. You probably use her a lot with Clara now, and you realize that the cleansing effect she has on her elemental skill is always handy. So she essentially not only is a preservation character, but an abundance mix because of her cleansing effect. So when it comes to design philosophy in Honkai Star Rail, you'll probably see future characters essentially become double dipping characters. Characters that are really good for the path they're in, but also have the traits from characters of other paths. And Seal is the best example. This character is extremely strong as a single target damage dealer, but she is on par with AoE damage dealers, especially whenever she gets her additional turn. You will probably find yourself using this character for a long time to come into the future, and I honestly believe that she was probably released a little too early, but maybe not too early if you consider the fact that she is the strongest DPS character in the game. Because if she was to release later with the kit she has now, she would essentially be what we call power creep. With Fuwan on the way, I think it's a good time to mention that she may be a character that double dips, but I think a character that essentially double dips in Honkai Star Rail is not a bad thing if they do that at their maxed out constellation. I think Hoyoverse will find a lot of value in having characters do the other things from other characters and other paths if you get them maxed out, which is going to entice the whales and make it to where the game isn't actually power creep. It's what we'll call whale creep, but that's going to be for a different video. But a character like March 7th, being able to cleanse a debuff from an ally gives her an abundance-like trait. Healers essentially also have cleansing effects. Bailu doesn't have any cleansing effects, which kind of makes her a little less valuable long term, but she's still an amazing character. So in a recent video, we talked about Huluwacha and how he would essentially power creep the current roster of Abundance characters in most situations. He is mainly an Abundance character because of his healing and cleansing capabilities, but he does have the trait of a Nihility character being able to strip the buff from the enemy like Pela, and he does have AoE damage on his ultimate, so he does have the trait of an erudition character like Himiko. The reason why double dipping is essentially a very interesting thing is because it will not only have characters like, let's just say March 7th, who has the like traits of a character from the Abundance path, but you essentially are able to free up a slot on your team if you have a character that can shield and heal at the same time. Or maybe you have a DPS character that is very self-sufficient like Seal. Maybe you have another character that essentially is able to heal, cleanse, and revive at the same time. Maybe then you probably won't need a shielder, so you can have a solar healer in your team, which would free up the other slots for your said team comp. And I think that's going to be very valuable when it comes to designing your dream team comp in Honkai Star Rail. When it comes to the design philosophy behind characters in Honkai Star Rail, Hoyoverse will see value in having characters essentially double dip. So, and character that is of the Preservation path having like traits from a character from the Abundance path, or a Hunt DPS character having traits from a character in the, let's just say, Nihility path, for example, or essentially an erudition character having the traits from a character in the Hunt path. That in turn will make more players feel more enticed to roll for more characters, and I can definitely see that becoming the norm long term. But in terms of power creep, or should I say whale creep, that's something we'll discuss later, and I don't think it's going to be as bad as it might seem. I stream daily on Twitch, twitch.tv/Toshio. The link will be in the description. Thank you for watching, and have a nice rest of your day. Peace.